Hello students, in this lecture I am going to discuss about the electrodes in biomedical instrumentation. So what is the role of electrodes in biomedical instrumentation? All these things I will be discussing here. What are the types of electrodes and what is the theory of electrode? Everything I will be discussing in this lecture. So to start with, first of all let me discuss, as I have already told you in my previous lectures, that what is the role of instruments in the biomedical field. Why do we need instruments in the biomedical field? These instruments are used for measurement of physiological variables. That is, we need instruments in biomedical field so that we can measure the physiological variables. So what are physiological variables? Again I am repeating, variable. What is variable? Variable is any quantity that varies with time, and physiological variable means those variables that are related to physiological processes of the human body. So these are the physiological variables. So for measuring these physiological variables we need instruments. Now these physiological variables can occur in many forms, like they can be in ionic potential form or in ionic current form, or they can be in mechanical movement form, they can be in hydraulic pressure and flow form, they can be in temperature variation form. So there are various forms in which the physiological variables can occur. And let me give you some examples. For example, the body temperature, example of physiological variables like body temperature, or the electrical activity of heart, means the bioelectric potentials generated by the heart muscles, or you can say the bioelectric potentials, or you can say the ionic potentials generated by the brain, the neurons, etc. So these are the examples of physiological variables, and for measuring these physiological variables we need a device. And I have told you these physiological variables occur in various forms. Now basically we need a transducer which can convert. What is the role of transducer? A transducer can convert any energy into the electrical form. And why do we need it in electrical form as an output? Because it can be amplified, processed, and then it can be used for recording or displaying, so that those physiological variables can be in perceptible form. So what I am trying to say is that we need a transducer which can convert the physiological variables. We need a transducer which can convert the physiological variables into the electronic form, or you can say into electrical signal. Now physiological variables which are in ionic potential or biopotential form, those physiological, for measuring those physiological variables, or you can say for converting those ionic potential or biopotential form into the electronic form, we need a device, and that device is the electrode. So in biomedical instrumentation field, electrodes, what is the role of electrodes in biomedical instrumentation field? In biomedical instrumentation field, the role of electrodes is to convert the ionic potential into the electronic form, and this electronic form or this electrical signal can be amplified or can be processed and then can be put into recording or displaying purpose, so that it can be in perceptible form. So this is the role of electrodes. Now I am going to discuss basically these electrodes. Actually these electrodes, as I have told you, they play an important part in the satisfactory recording of the bioelectric signals, or you can say the ionic potentials, and their choice requires careful consideration. That the choice of the electrodes, which electrode to be used for which application, requires careful consideration. So what are the considerations? Like the electrodes should be comfortable for the patient to wear over long periods, and it should not produce any artifacts. It should not. What is artifact? Artifact, as I have told you in my previous lecture, what is artifact? Because of the movement. One example, because of the movement of the subject, if the subject moves, so the transducer or the sensor that is put over the subject or the human body, if the human body is moving, and the transducer that is put over the human body for measurement purpose, if it is sensitive to the motion, then it will pick up the movement signals and it introduce noise into the original signal. So these are the artifacts. Basically artifacts are noise signals. So what I'm trying to tell you is that there are some considerations for choosing electrodes for a particular application. First is they should be comfortable for the patients to wear over long periods. Second, they should not produce any artifacts, and the third one is the convenience of application of the electrode. So this is there. Here I have written the definition of the electrodes, that what are electrodes? They are used for converting ionic potential into the electrical form. Now this is the okay, one more thing you might be again wondering the role of electrodes. So in very simple terms, in my previous lectures I have discussed about electrocardiogram, electroencephalogram, electromyogram. So what are these electrocardiogram? What are these electrocardiogram, electroencephalogram? These are basically the graphical representation of bioelectric potentials. What is electrocardiogram? Electrocardiogram is the graphical representation of the bioelectric potentials obtained from the heart muscles. So these bioelectric potentials, the graphical representation that is in the display form, that is the electrocardiogram. And to obtain the electrocardiogram, what we need? We need electrodes. Electrodes should be attached to the surface of the body over the heart so that it can pick up the bioelectric potential signals. It can pick up the bioelectric potentials and then it can transfer it to the display, so that it and the display and the final display that we get, that is the final graphical representation of these bioelectric potentials that we get, is the electrocardiogram. So here I think it is clear to you that why do we need electrodes? So that we can pick up the bioelectric potential signals and we can convert those signals into the electronic or electrical form, and then after amplification or processing we can put it into display or recording. Now this is basically the electrode tissue interface for surface electrodes. Actually what happens, mostly there are various type of electrodes like microelectrodes, surface electrodes, and then we have needle electrodes, but most commonly used electrodes in patient monitoring are surface electrodes. And the examples are while recording the ECG, for recording the ECG, the electrodes that we put over the body where the heart is present, that is the surface electrode. So the maximum electrodes, most commonly used electrodes are surface electrodes, and these electrodes are used over the subject or used over the body with the help of a electrolyte, or you can say electrode paste. So for putting, what I am trying to say, for putting the electrodes over the human body for measurement purpose, or you can say for converting the bioelectric potentials into the electrical form, for that purpose what we need, we cannot put electrodes directly over the body, we need a electrolyte gel. We need to apply a electrolyte gel over the body, and then we will put the electrodes over that gel over the body. So this is what I am representing. So this thing is clear. I hope that surface electrodes cannot be used alone over the body, we need a electrolyte gel. And the characteristic of surface electrode, which is actually what the surface electrode is composed of, it is composed of a metal electrode. Surface electrode is composed of a metal electrode that is attached to the surface of the body through an electrolyte gel. And the characteristic of this surface electrode, it depends upon the conditions at the metal electrolyte interface, then the electrolyte skin interface, and then the quality of electrode. So we have the electrode here, this is the human body. So we have applied the electrolyte gel, and this is representing the metal, because the metal electrode, basically we will be using the metal electrode. So this is representing the metal electrode interface, this is the electrolyte, this is representing the electrolyte skin interface, and this is the human body. And the surface of the electrode will depend upon all these three factors. So we will be discussing these three factors one by one. So let's first discuss what is metal electrolyte interface. Okay, well, I'll be discussing this metal electrolyte interface and all the rest of the factors in my next lecture. I'm ending this class here. Thank you.